At my sister's wedding, I found my seat. Outside, next to the trash cans. She smirked. Guess you don't count. I grabbed my gift, stood up, and walked out without saying a word. Minutes later, she went pale and screamed. All right, so picture this. I walked into my own sister's lavish wedding, ready to celebrate, only to find my name missing from the seating chart. But the real gut punch, being deliberately placed at a tiny table, right next to the buzzing trash cans, only for her to smirk and tell me, guess you don't count as real family anymore. I mean, how do you even process that? It wasn't just a wedding. It was the day I realized the sister I'd loved my whole life was gone, replaced by a stranger. Growing up in Lakefield, Michigan, Amanda and I were practically glued at the hip. We were only 2 years apart, sharing everything, secrets, dreams, the last slice of pizza. She was the smart one, always acing tests, while I was the creative fixer, the one who could solve any puzzle. Our parents worked their fingers to the bone, teaching us that family was everything, and we promised each other we'd always have each other's backs. I can still picture us on that rickety porch swing, planning our futures under a blanket of stars. She dreamt of being a powerful attorney, me of building a financial consulting business that helped everyday people. Pinky promise, remember? Always. Then came law school. Amanda got into Baldwin, but the scholarship wasn't quite enough. I'd just landed my first decent job after college, so I emptied my entire savings account for her first semester. You'd do the same for me, I told her, and I believed it with every fiber of my being. But then she met Jack Westfield, a name that came with old money and a legal dynasty. Slowly, subtly, Amanda started to change. Her thrift store finds were replaced by designer labels. Her language shifted, becoming almost alien. She even started correcting my table manners. It's just part of moving up in the world, Hamish, she'd say with this patronizing smile. You wouldn't understand, you've chosen to stay comfortable. Even then, I kept supporting her. When she called, midnight crying over a failed exam, I drove 3 hours, bringing her favorite comfort food and helping her study until dawn. When Jack dumped her for a bit, I let her crash at my apartment for 2 weeks, listening to her heartache. As things got serious with Jack, her visits home became a rarity. Excuses piled up, workload, internships, events with Jack's family. Our parents noticed, but stayed silent, so proud of her success they didn't want to rock the boat. When the wedding invitation finally arrived, I wasn't even in the wedding party. Amanda explained that Jack's family insisted on balance, for groomsmen, for bridesmaids. Since I was her only brother, I unfortunately didn't make the cut. I swallowed it, accepted it with a forced smile. Still excited to celebrate her day, I spent weeks hunting for the perfect gift, settling on our grandfather's vintage Swiss watch. He'd left it to me, but she'd always admired it. I thought it would connect her new life to our shared history. The week before, getting hold of her was impossible. Rush, impatience, stress, I told myself. Then I ran into Tyler, an old high school friend. He gushed about Amanda's lavish bachelor/bachelorette party at a vineyard. Open bar, gourmet food, overnight stays. I stood there, apple in hand, frozen. I hadn't even known about it. That night, my youngest sister, Grace, confirmed my growing dread. Amanda had been systematically excluding me from everything. Worse, she'd been spreading lies. She told Stacy you had anger issues and couldn't be trusted in social situations, Grace whispered. She said you were troubled and unstable. It felt like a physical blow. The sister I'd unconditionally supported for years was actively erasing me, twisting our past into a weapon. Still, I planned to go. Family was family. I hoped we could fix things. Boy, was I wrong. The morning of the wedding, I pressed my suit, shined my shoes. The ceremony wasn't until 4, but I promised to arrive early to help. The elegant invitation was for the Lakeshore Grand, a renovated landmark that screamed luxury. My 5-year-old Toyota felt laughably out of place among the Mercedes. The valet, who recognized my name with a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher, pointed me to the Magnolia Ballroom. Inside, it was a wonderland of crystal and white roses. Amanda's future mother-in-law, Catherine Westfield, a woman made of marble, waved me off coldly. We have everything in hand. Perhaps you should just take a seat and stay out of the way. Before I could even respond, Grace, my beautiful, unspoiled little sister, rushed over. Hamish, so glad you're here. It's been weird. Really weird. She pulled me aside, champagne in hand. Amanda's been tense. And I overheard her and Stacy in the bridal suite, talking about a hallway seat and laughing. Stacy asked, "Are you sure this prank isn't going too far?" And Amanda said, "He deserves it after what he did." My stomach clenched. What had I supposedly done? Grace shook her head. Jack's family is obsessed with status. Amanda's desperate to impress them. Somehow, you've become inconvenient. Just then, Jack's Uncle Frank, a barrel-chested man with kind eyes, found us. "You must be Hamish," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "I've heard interesting things about you." I braced myself, but he seemed genuine. "Jack speaks highly of you." This surprised me. I spent the next hour helping elderly relatives, enduring Catherine's icy glares, and noticing the strange looks, curiosity, pity, amusement from other guests. Whispers followed me, a growing suspicion that I was the punchline of some joke. But I kept my composure. This was Amanda's day. I clapped until my palms hurt when they were pronounced husband and wife. I was genuinely happy for her in that moment. Then came the reception. My name wasn't on the seating chart. A staff member, looking incredibly uncomfortable, scrolled on her tablet. "Ah, Mr. Carter. Yes, you have a special seating arrangement." She led me not to the glittering ballroom, but through a service door, down a hallway lined with catering equipment. At the very end, tucked behind a decorative screen, was a small bistro table. It sat directly beside 3 large trash cans, reeking of discarded food. A handwritten place card read Hamish. A plastic cup. A paper napkin. My face burned. There must be some mistake. The staff member wouldn't meet my eyes. The seating arrangements were approved directly by the bride. She scurried away. I stood there, utterly numb. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate. Intentional humiliation. The gift box felt like lead in my pocket. What could possibly justify such cruelty? I walked back into the ballroom, found Amanda surrounded by admirers, radiant in her gown. Her smile faltered when she saw me. "Hey, you made it." Her voice was too bright. I pulled her aside. "I need to speak with you. Privately. About the seating." Her eyes hardened. "Is there a problem?" "You know there is. I've been seated in the hallway, next to the trash cans." A few of her friends snickered. "Oh, that." She dismissed it with a wave. "We ran out of space. The Westfields had so many important guests. You put me in the hallway." I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Your own brother." She leaned in, her voice dripping with venom. "Honestly, Hamish, be grateful you're here at all. After everything you've put this family through, you're lucky I didn't have you turned away." I stared at her, genuinely lost. "What are you talking about? What have I supposedly done?" Her smile never wavered, but her eyes were ice. "Playing innocent doesn't suit you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have important people to attend to." Then she delivered the final blow, casual and brutal. "Guess you don't count as real family anymore." That was it. That was the line. This wasn't my sister. In that instant, I made my decision. I walked back to that shameful table, picked up the Hamish card, folded it, and put it in my pocket. The expensive gift went back into my jacket. With quiet dignity, I walked out, past laughing guests, past my confused parents, past Grace whose eyes widened in alarm. I walked straight for the exit. In the foyer, I nearly collided with Uncle Frank. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, genuine concern etching his face. "I wasn't welcome," I said simply. Amanda made that quite clear. His eyes narrowed. "What happened?" I told him briefly. "That's unacceptable. Let me speak to her." "Please don't. It would only create more drama. This is her day." Frank handed me his business card. "A day she'll regret, I suspect. I'd like to continue our conversation." I pocketed the card. As I waited for my car, a scream ripped through the reception. I didn't turn back. Whatever it was no longer my concern. I drove away from the Lakeshore Grand, a maelstrom of emotions swirling inside me. Humiliation, anger, grief. But also, surprisingly, relief. The sister I'd loved was gone. Acknowledging that truth was strangely liberating. My phone began buzzing, but I ignored it. I just drove, unsure of my destination, but certain I was heading away from pain. I ended up at Lakeside Park, a quiet spot where Amanda and I had spent countless summers. The evening turned cool, but I sat on a bench, watching the sunset. My phone vibrated endlessly. Finally, I checked the texts. Mostly Grace. "Where are you?" "Amanda is freaking out." Something happened with Jack's uncle. Call me. My parents had left voicemails. Mom sounded confused. Dad sounded angry. Just as I was about to call Grace, she called me. Everything exploded after you left, she practically screamed. Uncle Frank confronted Jack about your seating. Jack apparently knew nothing about it. Then Frank announced to everyone he was reconsidering his investment position given the character demonstrated today. Amanda completely freaked out. She didn't even know who he was. He's the main financial backer for the law firm where she and Jack are supposed to start working. Karma. It was swift, but I felt no pleasure. I'm coming to find you, Grace said firmly. Don't move. 20 minutes later, she hugged me tight. I'm so sorry. I knew something was off, but not that bad. Why, Grace? I asked, the words raw. What did I supposedly do to deserve being treated like garbage? She looked away. She's been telling people different stories. To the Westfields, she said you had addiction problems. To her law school friends, that you had inappropriate boundaries. To Stacy, that you'd stolen money from our parents and were only coming to ask for more. Each lie felt like a fresh stab. None of that is true. I know that. Mom and Dad know that. But Amanda needed villains in her origin story to explain why she was so much better now. You became the main one. We were interrupted by our phone ringing. It was our parents. We need to go to their house, Grace said. They're trying to figure out what's happening. Amanda and Jack are there. The thought of facing her again made my stomach clench, but I knew it was inevitable. Our parents' modest home felt surreal after the opulent wedding. The porch swing, Mom's flower beds, Dad's ancient Buick, all exactly the same. Inside, voices were already raised. Amanda, still in her wedding gown, mascara streaking her face, was gesturing wildly. Jack sat stiffly. Our parents looked shell-shocked. Silence fell when we entered. Hamish, what happened? Mom started. He made a scene. Amanda cut in. He embarrassed me because he wasn't seated at the head table. That's not what happened, I said quietly. Tell them where I was seated, Amanda. I was in the service hallway, next to the trash cans. My place setting was a paper napkin and a plastic cup. Mom gasped. Dad's face darkened. That can't be right, he muttered. Ask Grace, I urged. Ask any of the staff. And when I confronted her, she told me I should be grateful to be invited at all, and that I don't count as real family anymore. All eyes turned to Amanda. She seemed to deflate. It wasn't my idea, she mumbled. Stacy thought. Stop lying. Grace interjected. I heard you and Stacy talking about the hallway seat prank this morning. You were laughing about it. Amanda's expression hardened. Fine. Yes, I put Hamish in the hallway. He deserved it after trying to sabotage my relationship with Jack. Sabotage? I've never done anything. I yelled. You told Jack's family I came from nothing, that our family was poor. A confused silence. Amanda, Jack said carefully. Hamish never spoke to my family before today. You're the one who told me about your background. And Uncle Frank. Uncle Frank did his own research when we announced our engagement. That's just who he is. Amanda looked utterly stricken. So, Hamish didn't. I didn't do anything, I said, my voice heavy with pain. Except pay for your first semester of law school. Drive 3 hours to help you study. Let you live with me for 2 weeks when Jack broke up with you. Our parents looked between us, devastated. Amanda, Mom said slowly. Have you been lying about Hamish? The room was painfully quiet. I had to distance myself from my past to fit in with Jack's world, Amanda whispered. The Westfields are so polished. My background, our background, it felt embarrassing. So you invented stories about me having addiction problems? About me stealing from our parents? My voice trembled. You told people what? Dad's voice rose sharply. Amanda broke down, sobbing. I'm sorry. It got out of hand. One small lie led to another, and soon I couldn't take any of it back without looking like a complete fraud. You are a complete fraud, I said quietly. The sister I knew would never have done this. Jack stood up. I think Amanda and I need to talk privately. His jaw was tight. This isn't what I signed up for. They left for the kitchen, their hushed, intense conversation barely audible. My parents, heartbroken, approached me. We talked for an hour about Amanda's transformation, the stories, the wedding debacle. It painted a picture of a sister who had systematically rewritten her past for her new life. Later, driving home with Grace, I was emotionally drained, but lighter. The truth, however painful, was finally out. What will you do? Grace asked. I don't know, I admitted. But whatever happens, at least it'll be based on truth, not lies. What I didn't know then was that Amanda's web of deception was about to hit my career like a wrecking ball. Monday morning, the harsh buzz of my alarm ripped me awake. The emotional exhaustion was a lead blanket, but 5 years at Preston Financial Partners taught me to show up. No one had heard from Jack since he and Amanda left my parents' house. Amanda, Mom said, had temporarily moved into their guest room, refusing to discuss anything. I'd just settled at my desk when my assistant, Diane, appeared, her face etched with concern. Hamish, Marcus wants to see you in the conference room. Right now. Marcus Preston, our founding partner, wasn't one for casual requests. And right now, with the executive team and legal present, my stomach plummeted. The main conference room was eerily silent. Marcus sat at the head of the table. Hamish, he said, his tone carefully neutral. We've received a concerning call from Gerald Westfield. The name hit me like a bucket of ice water. Jack's father, one of the most influential attorneys in the state. He expressed serious concerns about your involvement in the Atkinson merger. This was our biggest deal, months of my work. What concerns? I asked, my voice steady. Our general counsel, Sandra, slid a folder across the table. Mr. Westfield alleges you have personal issues that compromise your professional judgment. Specifically, he claims you have a history of financial impropriety and substance abuse issues. The blood drained from my face. Amanda's lies. They had followed me here. That's completely false, I said, all of it. I've never had substance abuse issues, and I've certainly never engaged in financial impropriety. Marcus's face was unreadable. Gerald Westfield is not someone who makes accusations lightly. He indicated these concerns came from a family member with direct knowledge. My sister, I stated flatly, who just married his son. A ripple of shock went through the room. You're related to the Westfields? Our COO asked. As of Saturday, by marriage only. And therein lies the problem. I took a deep breath and gave them the condensed version of the weekend's events. When I finished, the room was silent. This is not what I expected, Marcus said finally. But Gerald Westfield has considerable influence. The Atkinsons specifically requested his firm handle the legal aspects. If he pushes them to question your involvement, we could lose the entire deal. Based on complete lies. I said, frustration boiling. I've never given anyone here reason to doubt my character. No, you haven't, Marcus agreed. Your work has been exemplary. But perception matters in this business. And right now, the perception from a very influential corner is problematic. So what happens now? I asked, my voice tight. Marcus exchanged glances with the others. We think it's best if you step back from client-facing work on the Atkinson deal. It wasn't a suspension, but it felt like one. I nodded stiffly, anger and humiliation burning me alive. Hamish, Marcus called as I reached the door. For what it's worth, I believe your version of events. But we need to handle this carefully. I spent the rest of the morning locked in my office, oscillating between fury and disbelief. Amanda's lies weren't just hurting our family anymore. They were threatening my entire career. I had poured my life into Preston Financial. The thought of losing it all because of her insecurity was unbearable. Around 11, Diane knocked softly. There's someone here to see you. No appointment, but he's insistent. I expected my father, maybe even Jack. Instead, Frank Westfield stood in my doorway. Mr. Westfield, I said, rising quickly. This is unexpected. Frank, please. And I apologize for the intrusion. He walked in, taking a seat. I understand my brother has been making waves. I hesitated, unsure how much to say. Frank waved a hand dismissively. Don't worry about being diplomatic. Gerald and I have different approaches to, well, everything. Always have. May I ask what he's accused you of? Cautiously, I outlined the morning's meeting. Frank's expression darkened. I see my niece's creativity extends beyond wedding seating arrangements. He leaned forward. Hamish, I owe you an apology. If I hadn't made such a scene at the wedding, Gerald might not have felt the need to retaliate. You have nothing to apologize for, I countered. You were the only one who stood up for me. Perhaps, but I could have handled it more discreetly. The question now is how to fix this mess. Before I could answer, my office phone rang. Marcus's assistant, requesting my immediate presence in the executive boardroom. It seems the situation is developing, I told Frank. I'm being summoned upstairs. Perfect timing, Frank said, rising. I'll join you. That might not be appropriate, I said. Trust me, son. In situations like this, having the right allies matters more than protocol. The executive boardroom, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, fell silent when Frank and I entered. Marcus recovered first. "Mr. Westfield, we weren't expecting you." "Frank, please." And I apologize for the interruption, but when I heard about my brother's call this morning, I felt compelled to intervene. He surveyed the room. "I understand Gerald has raised concerns about Hamish's involvement?" Marcus nodded cautiously. "Yes, based on information from my new niece-in-law, no doubt." Frank settled into a chair. "Information that is, to put it bluntly, entirely fabricated." "We've heard Hamish's side," our COO interjected. "But the Westfield firm's involvement complicates matters." "The Westfield firm," Frank said carefully, "is not a monolith. My brother may be the figurehead, but I am the primary investor. And what Hamish may not know is that I've been concerned about certain practices at the firm for some time. Practices involving the junior associates Jack has been bringing on board, including his new wife." The room went dead silent. "What sort of practices?" Sandra, our general counsel, asked, her legal mind already whirring. "Nothing definitively illegal yet, but a pattern of client development techniques that skirt the boundaries of proper disclosure and conflict of interest." Frank's expression was grave. "I was already investigating when the wedding incident occurred. Hamish's treatment struck me as symptomatic of a larger character issue within that particular circle. How we treat those we believe can't benefit us reveals more than how we treat those we wish to impress." Marcus leaned forward. "Are you suggesting Gerald's call was a preemptive strike? He likely assumes I spoke to Hamish at the wedding and revealed my concerns. This would be his way of discrediting any potential whistleblower." I sat in stunned silence. This had gone far beyond family drama. Frank turned to me. "I want to be clear, Hamish. I have no evidence that your sister is directly involved in anything improper, but she's aligned herself with people I no longer trust. And her willingness to fabricate harmful stories about her own brother suggests a troubling lack of ethical boundaries." The meeting went on for another hour. By the end, I was fully reinstated on the Atkinson deal. Even more, Marcus was considering moving all of Preston Financial's business away from Westfield, Bronson, and Taylor. As Frank and I walked to the elevators, I was still reeling. "Why are you helping me?" I asked finally. "You barely know me." Frank smiled faintly. "I know enough. I've spent 40 years in business developing a good sense for character. You have it. My nephew, despite his advantages, does not. Nor does his new wife, it seems." "She wasn't always like this," I said quietly. "Few people are born calculating," Frank agreed. "But the choices we make shape us, one compromise at a time." The elevator arrived. "Speaking of choices, I have a proposition for you. Not today. You have enough to process. But soon. My card has my personal number." As the doors closed, I realized my entire situation had transformed. The threat to my career was gone, but the questions about Amanda and Jack's firm lingered. What kind of proposition did Frank have in mind? The fallout from Amanda's wedding was far from over. 3 months passed in a blur of work and awkward family dynamics. The Atkinson merger sailed through, thanks to Frank personally recommending an alternative law firm. My position at Preston? Not just secure, but enhanced. Amanda remained at my parents' house. Jack had moved into a hotel. Neither was talking to the other. Grace, who'd bravely become our family's communication coordinator, said our parents were walking on eggshells. I kept my distance. The wound of Amanda's betrayal, the public humiliation, it was all too fresh. But by the 3rd week, avoidance felt unsustainable. Frank had called twice, hinting at information I needed to hear about Amanda. Grace was sending increasingly urgent texts about a family intervention. Even Marcus gently suggested that unresolved personal matters could eventually affect my performance. So, on a rainy Wednesday, I finally called Frank. We agreed to meet at his downtown office, a cool industrial space that was a world away from the imposing Westfield headquarters. Frank greeted me with a firm handshake. "Good to see you. Coffee." We settled into leather chairs. "I've been gathering information," he said without preamble, "about the situation at my brother's firm, specifically involving Jack's team and Amanda." I added, "Yes, though her role appears more peripheral than I initially feared." He slid a folder across the table. "What I've found is a pattern of aggressive client development practices. Not quite illegal, but certainly unethical." I opened the folder, emails, financial reports, internal memos. Jack has been leading a team targeting clients already represented by competing firms, Frank explained, using privileged information obtained through social connections to exploit vulnerabilities in existing relationships. Is that illegal? I asked, scanning the documents. Not explicitly, but it violates ABA ethical guidelines. More importantly, it creates a culture of corner-cutting that leads to serious breaches. Frank's expression was grave. I've invested in my brother's firm for decades, but I won't be associated with this. I've already begun divesting. What does this have to do with Amanda? Frank leaned back. Your sister appears to have been recruited specifically because of her eagerness to prove herself and her lack of existing connections in the legal community. She's been tasked with socializing with spouses and family members of potential clients, gathering information for Jack's team. The realization hit me like a freight train. That's why she was so desperate to distance herself from our family. She was creating a new persona. Precisely. And when you remained a link to her actual background, you became inconvenient to that narrative. I sat there reeling. There's more, Frank said quietly. The firm partnership vote happens next month. Gerald promised Jack and Amanda early partnership tracks. In light of my investigation and divestment, those promises are in jeopardy. How much trouble are they in? Ethics committee reviews, possibly suspension of licenses in the worst case. Financially, the partnership would have doubled their salaries. Without it, they're facing a significant lifestyle adjustment, especially with the wedding expenses and their new house. I thought about Amanda and Jack, overextended, reaching for a dream built on shaky foundations. What are you planning to do? I asked. That depends partly on you, Frank replied. I've already spoken with my brother. Gerald knows I'm aware of the ethical issues and that I'm withdrawing my investment. What he doesn't know is whether I plan to make formal complaints to the Bar Association. And do you? Frank studied me. I believe in consequences, Hamish. But I also believe in second chances when there's potential for genuine change. Jack is my nephew, despite his poor choices. And Amanda is your sister. I understood then. You want me to confront her. To give her a chance to course correct before formal complaints are filed. I want you to decide what would be most constructive. Revenge might feel satisfying, but it rarely builds anything worthwhile. I left Frank's office with the folder and a crushing sense of responsibility. What Amanda had done was deeply personal, deeply hurtful. But did I want to be instrumental in destroying her career? Would that bring true resolution? After a restless night, I made my decision. The next morning, I called Amanda, for the first time since the wedding. Hamish. Her voice was small, uncertain. I didn't expect to hear from you. We need to talk. Not at Mom and Dad's. Somewhere neutral. A hesitation. Okay. Where? The coffee shop near your office. Noon today. She agreed without argument, a stark contrast to the pre-wedding Amanda who would have insisted on controlling every detail. The coffee shop was bustling. I ordered a black coffee and found a back table. Amanda arrived precisely at noon. She looked different. Her designer clothes were replaced by a simple blouse and slacks. Minimal makeup, hair in a ponytail. She looked younger, more vulnerable, startlingly like the sister I'd grown up with. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a tea mug. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I was the one who called you, I pointed out. Still, after everything, I wouldn't have blamed you for cutting me off completely. She finally met my eyes. I'm so sorry, Hamish. What I did was unforgivable. I studied her, searching for sincerity. Why did you do it? Really? She was quiet for a long moment. It started small. When I first met Jack's family, I was intimidated. Their wealth, their connections. I wanted to fit in, so I polished my background a little. Made our family sound more established. That's understandable, I conceded. But how did you get from that to telling people I had addiction problems and stole from our parents? Her eyes filled with tears. Jack's father started asking specific questions about my family. He made it clear they were investigating my background. I panicked. I knew they wouldn't find anything negative about me. I've always been the perfect one. But you? I've never been in trouble either, I said flatly. I know, but you're more real, more yourself. You don't care about impressing people. I was afraid they'd see that and somehow use it against me. She wiped a tear away. So I created a narrative where I was the responsible one who had overcome a difficult family situation. It was easier than admitting I was ashamed of not coming from money. And the wedding seating? I pushed. She looked down. That was after Jack's father started raising concerns about partnership. He suggested the wedding was a test of our social acumen. I was terrified of anything going wrong. And Stacy suggested, God, it sounds so horrible now. She suggested creating a controlled disruption. Something that would show Jack's family how well we could handle problems. By humiliating you. Her voice broke. I convinced myself you would understand somehow. That it was just one day, that my entire future was at stake. But when I saw your face, I knew I'd crossed a line. I took out Frank's folder and placed it on the table. Do you know what this is? She shook her head. Evidence of ethical violations at Westfield, Bronson, and Taylor, specifically involving Jack's team and their client acquisition methods. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? Frank Westfield, Jack's uncle, the one who confronted you at the wedding. Is he going to file a complaint with the Bar Association? That depends. On what? On you. On whether you're willing to make real changes. Not just apologize when you're caught. Amanda stared at the folder, then at me. What do you want me to do? First, tell Jack the truth. All of it. About your background, about the lies you told, about using me as a scapegoat. Then, both of you need to decide what kind of lawyers, what kind of people you want to be. Frank is willing to help you transition to a firm with better ethical standards, but only if you commit to actual change. And if you don't, then he files formal complaints, and your careers are potentially over before they've even begun. Her hands trembled as she reached for the folder. Can I take this to show Jack? I nodded. Frank has copies. She gathered her things, then paused. Why are you doing this, Hamish? After what I did, why help me at all? I considered the question. Because I remember the sister who used to share her dreams with me on the porch swing. Because despite everything, I believe that person still exists somewhere inside you. And because continuing the cycle of hurt won't heal either of us. Amanda's eyes filled with tears again. I don't deserve a brother like you. No, I agreed. You don't. Not yet. But maybe someday you will. As she left, I felt a strange mixture of lingering hurt, cautious hope, and an unexpected sense of peace. I had given her a chance at redemption, not because she deserved it, but because offering it was the right thing to do. Whatever she chose to do with that chance would reveal who she truly was. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly everything would unfold after that meeting. 3 months flew by, bringing a summer of profound change. That confrontation at the coffee shop had set off a chain reaction. The day after, Amanda showed Jack the folder. According to Grace, their conversation lasted all night. Tears, recriminations, hard truths finally laid bare. By morning, they'd made a shocking decision. They would both resign from Westfield, Bronson, and Taylor. Jack called his Uncle Frank directly, admitting his involvement in the unethical practices and expressing genuine remorse. Amanda reached out to our parents, confessing everything, not just the wedding, but all the lies. She even called a handful of mutual friends to correct the false narratives she'd spread about me. The changes weren't just professional. Amanda and Jack sold their expensive house, moving into a modest apartment. They postponed their honeymoon indefinitely, using the refunded deposits to start repaying their wedding costs. Meanwhile, Frank Westfield made good on his promise. Instead of filing formal complaints, he helped Jack and Amanda find positions at a smaller, ethically minded firm. The positions came with significant pay cuts and no partnership track, but they offered something far more valuable, the chance to rebuild their careers on integrity, not appearances. As for me, Frank's proposition turned out to be an incredible business opportunity. He was impressed by my work on the Atkinson merger and by how I handled the family crisis. He offered to back me in starting my own financial consulting firm, focusing on small to medium businesses, the kind often overlooked by the big players like Preston. After careful consideration, I accepted. We launched Carter Financial Partners in August, with Frank as a silent partner and mentor. The work was challenging, but deeply satisfying. Helping family-owned businesses, supporting diverse entrepreneurs, creating financial strategies built on long-term stability. My relationship with Amanda remained cautious, but it was healing. We started with weekly phone calls, then gradually moved to occasional dinners. The sister I remembered from childhood slowly emerged with each conversation. Her sharp intelligence now tempered with humility, her ambition balanced by a growing sense of purpose beyond mere status. Which brings us to today. A crisp October evening, 3 months after the wedding disaster. Our parents insisted on hosting a family dinner to celebrate my new business. As I pulled into their driveway, Amanda's car was already there. Inside, the atmosphere was tentatively festive. Mom had cooked all my favorites. Dad had hung a congratulations banner. Grace and her boyfriend arranged gifts. Jack stood somewhat awkwardly by the window, still finding his footing in our family dynamic. And Amanda? She was in the dining room, setting the table. Hamish. Mom enveloped me in a fierce hug. We're so proud of you. I hugged her back, then greeted Dad and Grace. Amanda approached last, carrying a stack of place cards. I assigned the seating, she said with a small smile. Hope that's okay. A beat of silence. Then we both laughed, a shared joke that eased some of the lingering tension. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Jack, freed from the pressure to impress, revealed a dry sense of humor I'd never seen. My parents shared embarrassing childhood stories. Grace announced her acceptance into grad school. Amanda remained quiet, watching it all with thoughtful attention. As Mom brought out dessert, Amanda stood and tapped her glass. I'd like to say something, if that's okay. She looked at me. Hamish, I know this dinner is about celebrating your new business, and we are all so incredibly proud of what you're building. But I need to acknowledge something important first. She took a deep breath. 3 months ago, I was so consumed by appearances, by what other people thought, that I lost sight of what actually matters. I treated the person who had always supported me, who paid for my education, celebrated my successes, helped me through my failures, like he was disposable. Worse than disposable, like he was an embarrassment. The table was completely silent. I've spent these months trying to understand how I became someone capable of such cruelty. And I've realized that success means nothing if you sacrifice your integrity to achieve it. She gestured around the dining room. This family. Truth. Genuine connection. This is real success. She reached under the table and produced a small box, wrapped in silver paper with a blue ribbon, identical to the gift I'd brought to her wedding. I can't undo what I did at the wedding, but I can acknowledge it, learn from it, and try every day to be worthy of the second chance I've been given. She placed the box beside my plate. This isn't the same as what I lost, but I hope it can be a new beginning. With uncertain hands, I unwrapped the gift. Inside was not my grandfather's watch, but a new one. Simple, elegant, engraved on the back. Time reveals true character. Thank you for showing me mine. I looked up to find Amanda watching me anxiously. It's perfect, I said quietly. Later, as the evening wound down, I found myself on the front porch with Amanda, sitting on the old swing, just like old times. The night was cool, stars clear in the autumn sky. Do you remember when we used to plan our futures out here? She asked softly. Every detail, I replied. You were going to be a crusading attorney, fighting for justice in dramatic courtroom battles. She laughed. Softly. Reality turned out a bit different. It usually does. Are you happy, Hamish? With your new company, with how things turned out? I considered it. I am. Not because everything is perfect. It's not. Building something from scratch is harder than I expected. But it's mine. Built on my values. Helping the kind of people I care about. That matters more than I realized. I think I'm learning that, too, Amanda said. The new firm isn't prestigious or wealthy. Most of our clients are regular people with regular problems. But the work feels clean. Meaningful. She glanced at me. Jack's changing, too. You might actually like him if you gave him another chance. I'm working on it, I promised. We fell into a comfortable silence, the porch swing creaking gently. You know what I've been thinking about lately? Amanda said finally. That table in the hallway next to the trash cans. How perfectly it symbolized what I'd become. Someone willing to throw away what mattered for what impressed. Poetic justice, I agreed. Life rarely offers such perfect metaphors. She turned to face me directly. I know I've said it before, but I am truly sorry, Hamish. For all of it. I know you are. And I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger would only hurt both of us more. When did my little brother get so wise? She asked with a sad smile. Probably around the same time my big sister remembered who she really is. As we talked late into the night, I reflected on the strange journey of the past 3 months. From the public humiliation to the professional threat, from confrontation to reconciliation, all of us had been transformed. Amanda would never again be the idolized big sister of my childhood. But perhaps she could become something more valuable, a real person, flawed but self-aware, capable of both terrible mistakes and genuine growth. Our relationship would never be perfect, but it could be authentic, built on truth rather than appearances, on mutual respect rather than obligation. Life offers few neat resolutions. Relationships damaged by betrayal don't heal overnight. Trust, once broken, rebuilds slowly, through consistent actions, not dramatic gestures. But sitting there on that creaky porch swing with my sister, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again: hope. Not just for her redemption, but for all of us. Hope that we could learn from our mistakes, that we could choose better paths forward, that the hardest moments in our lives could become catalysts for the most meaningful growth. The wedding seat in the hallway had been meant as my humiliation. Instead, it became a turning point that freed me from others' expectations and opened the door to a more authentic life. Sometimes walking away from where you're not valued is the first step toward finding where you truly belong. If you've ever faced rejection or betrayal from those who should have valued you most, I hope my story reminds you that such moments don't define your worth. They reveal the character of others, not your own. And sometimes what begins as heartbreak can become the unexpected foundation for something far better than what you lost. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic situation to preserve your dignity? How did it change your life? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. And the most powerful thing you can offer is forgiveness, even when it isn't deserved.